Welcome to RHI's Sociable City Interviews, where we meet with global thought leaders on nightlife and the social economy. Today we are joined by Michael Ince, Director at the Mayor's Office of Nighttime Economy for the City of New Orleans. He channels his passion for urban revitalization into policies that support hospitality workers and enhance New Orleans' cultural vibrancy. Hey, Michael, great to see you today and talk to you and have this opportunity. You've been doing such great work in New Orleans.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I really appreciate y'all having me and let us talk about the city. We can talk about it for days.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of history going back to 2000 with New Orleans. We held a conference in 2007 and another one, I think, in well, I know we've had several events in New Orleans, and I did some work in New Orleans, and so I've been watching its evolution, and it's exciting to see that you have this office. So maybe talk about your background and your current role.
Sure. Well, I could definitely say that, I had no idea, looking forward that I would ever be in a position like this. It's an incredible privilege, to be able to represent the city of New Orleans in this manner and the businesses that we represent. We definitely do not take that responsibility lightly. My background, I would like to say I'm, more of an urban planner, community development, revitalization type, bureaucrat with a lot of political experience, policy, legislative affairs experience. I came into this role, a year and a half ago as the director, but came on, about a year after the office was formed. Coming down from state level government, I was the director of intergovernmental affairs for the lieutenant governor. So I pretty much represented him across all 64 parishes when it came to legislative affairs, primarily focusing on culture, recreation, and tourism, as well as historic preservation, and of course, being very involved in music as well. And now the state has the state music commission, which we're very excited to be able to support and be a part of. Not just as New Orleanians, but as the state of Louisiana, is it's a great privilege. We have a rich base of musicians, whether it's here or down in in Homa or Pierre Part or Lake Charles, Slidell. It doesn't really matter which corner of the state you touch on. We have creatives everywhere, and it's been a real privilege to kind of be able to be that voice in a sense for the city. And yeah, we are very excited about a lot of the work that we've conducted over the last year and a half, and how that can be shared in support of other smaller communities that may not have the same level of capacity to take on some of these endeavors that we've spearheaded.
Yeah, what a great background to come into this role because clearly there's a lot of things that are happening locally that are outside of the hands of local politicians and local community activists like you that really requires some state level intervention or coordination. And that's one of the projects I'm working on in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, is how do you set up a state level office, not only on music, but the whole social economy, uh, because there's a lot of issues that happen at the local level. But in your experience, then, as you begin to work locally in New Orleans, what have been your greatest challenges and accomplishments moving from a state planner to a city planner?
Sure. Well, I think, one of the best things, that we had going, for me stepping in this role is I was very nervous, of being this voice, not being originally from New Orleans, not being a musician or having been in the music industry per se, but being a participant, and really understanding how to take projects or policy and then put it in motion or implementation and bring the right people to the table to get that over the hurdle and get that level of support as I had that set level of trust from the right electeds to be able to engage in these type of conversations and ask what their thoughts were, their experiences were on how we could get this stuff moved forward. I would say challenges for New Orleans really is a lot of starting and stopping and not fulfilling commitments, which really has broken down trust from city government, state government, on down to stakeholders and cultural creatives. is that there is a deep, level of distrust of government as a whole. It's kind of the New Orleans way, in a sense. And so, it really had to start from real relationship building, and mutual respect and trust, which is how we really operate, in every single facet that we touch on, in the office at nighttime economy. And so really it was, trying to fill the goodwill tank first, because you can't take on these type of endeavors without a strong coalition together and everybody rowing together. And you don't do that through connections. You do that through true relationships and people knowing that you're going to fulfill your end of the bargain. And I think that was probably the most difficult part. Really is. Being able to express to, whether it was restaurants or bars or musicians or just creatives in general, that we were here to stay and really, really, you know, being thought leaders, and fulfilling those type of commitments and then not falling back on it and being in a place where, this has always worked this way and so we'll just kind of go with it or, it's not my problem or it's not my issue, it's somebody else's thing that they can take on. We see a problem and we address it. We bring the right people to the table and really attack problems head on, is that was probably the most difficult thing. I think the thing I'm most proud about right now, and I said this in a meeting last night with all of the French Quarter residents, which can be a difficult crowd at times, is that what I think I'm most proud about for this office is that the businesses, the musicians, and neighborhood groups and stakeholder groups really all speak, in the same light of our vision, is that we're not selling anymore, is that we really had to build up that goodwill tank. And now I think we've built up a lot of goodwill and trust from the right people to be able to take on, bigger endeavors. We've built up a foundation to now where we can take moonshots and see what happens.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I know that everything is in small steps, and that's all building trust.
Sure.
So I've seen you go from something that I think ever since I've been in New Orleans was a big issue was loading zones for musicians to unload their equipment to get into the venues and have it in a safe way so that their vans are not going to be vandalized. And so you went from that small step of an accomplishment to actually a strategic plan or a strategy plan that seems much more comprehensive than just loading zones.
Sure. And that program is a great example of that. It was a great start to getting into the community and let them know that we were going to take action on things. Since that program has rolled out, we've experienced, numerous type of hiccups or issues around enforcement or support from other, parking enforcement to be able to really make that program, the best it can be. And so what we really started to do now is make adjustments to that program and improve upon it. And I think that's what club owners and musicians as a whole see is that, we'll start right here and voice what they need and want. But if it's not working the way it should work to its best ability and really helps them, then we're going to adjust. Is that we're very flexible in that manner and we're not doing things just for the sake of doing it or one person has a mindset of what they want to see accomplished. Is that we're going to evaluate in real time. And I always like to say, I have an MPA background, is that it's either bad policy or poor implementation. And so we really, really make adjustments and self-evaluate and try and make these programs the best they possibly can be, because that's what we're here to do, is really serve that community. And I think that's one of those things that really builds up that goodwill and trust with the community. Again, of building a bill of sale to musicians or proprietors that this is going to be the best thing for them, and it not always panning out, is that they know that we're gonna make adjustments and we're gonna hear positive feedback and negative feedback, and we're gonna go after it and address it.
Now, I know you haven't had a long history in New Orleans, or at least in this particular role, or at least with this intensive look at the entertainment venues, the independent venues. And the NIVA, the National Independent Venues Association, reported last year that about 40% of venue operators reported they didn't make a profit. It's a very small margin business, and as much as people want to have live music, and they'll spend $500 to go to a Live Nation concert. It's the small independent venues that might offer some really incredible talent, but that the public may not necessarily be as willing to pay for that type of music or access the venues and pay for the musicians. So how do you see some of these independent venues adapting to the changes in the marketplace and adapting their business model and how they operate?
Sure. Yeah, I think that one of the things that that's really held us back, is that we've always, as of recently, really catered to tourism and visitors to really try and sustain that local small independent operator business model. Whereas previously, we had the population pre-Katrina to really be able to sustain those venues. And so trying to get locals back into these venues and seeing that band that's up and coming or that artist that's up and coming before they blow up and become, sometimes not affordable to see. And so, to us, and I'm sure Julia would speak to this as well, is really just being protective of the brand and identity that is the musicians and these venues. We have some of the most iconic venues in the world, where a lot of communities would really feel blessed to have them. And I think at times we've taken that for granted and not understood the true, business model or what the margins are. I have a hospitality and also a business background here and work hand in hand with businesses and in a former role I'm a Main Street guy. I really like getting boots on the ground, walking into businesses, talking to them day to day, checking on them and see where their hard costs are, where their pain points are, understanding it. And so, I wasn't a venue operator by any means, but I knew a lot of the elements that were similar, in a restaurant or a retail business would be similar with a live entertainment venue, but just making, adjustments and understanding really where those pain points are. But again, we have to have our locals back. Is there's a lot of different elements that have held people back from coming downtown New Orleans or to the French Quarter or Frenchman Street, and where a lot of our live entertainment venues reside. But really making a concerted effort to, go to that venue before Jazz Fest. I talk to locals all the time, and what tends to end up happening is people hold on to their money a little bit, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to go to Jazz Fest, we're going to get our brass passes, or we're going to go see a couple shows, and then we're going to pick and choose some places on independent venues where some of those musicians or those artists may play with our local musicians, and really have that kind of kicker of a show. And so, I've been really, trying to be self-reflective in my own right, of what my music consumption habits are. Is, I think a lot of nighttime economy directors would tell you is that we're the tip of the spear in this role, and that at times we don't actually get to enjoy it all the time. We're always working, and so I've really tried to make a concerted effort to, for me, and my wife, my family, when they come to visit, or my parents, they love shows. They lived in New Orleans in the '80s. They live with us now, and they're retired, and they get to go see more shows than me, and I'm in this role, and so it's really being self-reflective and letting locals know that they're the drivers. This is their city. And when they travel, people want to ask them, who did you go see? Who's the next upcoming band from New Orleans or artist? And where should I be going to see these shows? And New Orleanians are the best sellers of our businesses and our product, and it's really just always getting back to letting New Orleans be New Orleans, and
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
to me is like the biggest thing we can do.
Yeah, Jason Patterson from Snug Harbor is somebody that I worked with, and I worked with him
He's great.
when they created the overlay where they were trying to preserve the music on Frenchman Street and not become Bourbon Street. But I understand just because of economics and things that have happened since COVID that it's not as successful as perhaps they had wanted it to be. But you had mentioned your strategy plan, so can you speak more broadly about what that is?
Sure. It's really we did a lot of this internally over an 8-month term. Each week, all three of us really sitting down, having taken a lot of notes from, individual conversations with business owners, artists, people in the industry, and bringing it back, to the house and putting it all on paper, and then us really getting back to, like I said before, of being self-reflective, understanding where our true pain points are, as both thinking of a business sense, but also as a city where we have let them down, and taken these situations for granted. And a lot of that is, either it's supporting, like I said before, it's a five-pillar plan, built around nightlife business support and visibility, summer sustainability, and we can talk more about how the weather and climate just really holds us back at times. Access, mobility, and space, so really understanding, getting back to that musician loading zone of how it impacts our service industry workers and musicians as a whole. Um, Public safety and quality of life, is, every city is dangerous, but New Orleans is, I don't think, it's, a new topic, but New Orleans absolutely is, can be a dangerous place, and both for, patrons, residents, visitors, and how we go about that and making people feel comfortable to either work in an establishment or visit and be a patron repeatedly. And then, of course, the music industry development side. And so we found that those were, some of the most critical things that we could try and address. And of course, we started this office without a real plan or a path forward. There was a lot of things that were suggested to us and shared with us by stakeholders and council members and everyone that's involved in this type of, planning. But, again, we're the boots on the ground, and we really, really took a hard look of what was holding us back. Um, and it had to just be, it had to be an honest conversation, is that, do people feel safe to work in these venues? Do patrons feel safe to walk down to Frenchman Street at night when we have, a lot of different, crime and homelessness issues that are taking place? How do we address those issues as a whole? And a lot of that, again, is having trust to bring city agencies together and work with us to address those issues head on and not smoothing it over, but saying, would you be comfortable going down there by yourself, or would you be comfortable
Mhm.
sending your friends from out of town down there, and pitching a good time to them. And so I'm really proud of us putting this strategic plan together, and really, really happy about the feedback that we've gotten from our business owners that have reached out, continually since we released that. And I think we released it at the perfect time too, with budget season coming up. It's not new news that the city of New Orleans is, $160 million in a budget deficit right now and having to take out capital loans. But we had to be very self-reflective on that. And, summer issues galore, hurricanes, heat,
Mhm.
nothing short of locusts in the air, is that we have to be able to address those and be self-reflective.
Yeah. Well, it seems like you went through an important process, and while a strategy plan kind of documents that, I always like to use a quote from Jim Uttry. He says, when people with a common vision come together, they can accomplish more than any strategic plan. So it seems like what you did was you established that people with a common vision and getting them all directed in the same way and just documented that through your plan. And now it's a question of putting it together. But because of the base of support and involvement, you obviously are starting at a good point.
Right.
So New Orleans is always known as a music city. Uh, but what makes a music city, and if you had to list like the three most important elements of a music city, and then what puts New Orleans into that framework?
Well, I think that we definitely have it going for us that I think we're the original music city, and that was done organically by the people, is that, I will say that with pride that, this is the birthplace of modern American music, and it wasn't produced or done for, any one individual audience, is that this is the foundation of it. You know, bar none. We got the best musicians in the world. It's not even a competition in my mind. Best, I'll say the best cooks and best food in the world as well too, with a straight face and a whole heart. Is that we started off with a very, very strong foundation of that created a model for a lot of other cities to want to replicate. And Not to say that, any of these places are lacking in any ways. I love going to Austin and Nashville and in other places and experiencing that level of creativity and fully supportive of that. And, definitely don't see that as competition, but can be very complimentary to us, is that we started out on the right foot. I just think that, over time we took that for granted to a sense that thinking that a lot of things that have forced that side of creativity would always be there to support an industry, and then that's just not been the case. And so the difficulty for us too is that we are a low income city. Is
Mhm.
it holds us back in many different ways because the economic makeup of the city is so heavily invested in hospitality. It's 40 to 50% that makes up of the overall economy of our city. And so it tells you where our priorities lie, but we also, again, getting back to it, have taken that for granted. Elements that make up a music city is again, I would think that there are different situations or maybe even geographically that have produced that for us. Is that we are a city surrounded by water. So, we are presented with numerous challenges every single day, and this is a hard place to live. So, and it's not for everyone, is that you really have to take this city as it goes and move with the river. And, those type of cultural influences really drive creativity, and some for the betterment and some for the worse. This is an incredibly resilient city. I think that we would, agree again, that we really truly come together in moments of despair and strife, and support one another. And again, creativity, follows those type of things. We just need to invest in those individuals in this industry more so, to where it's not so negative, such a negative impact when these situations happen. Post Katrina, the banding together of musicians to support the city as a whole and express to the nation that we're going nowhere. We will be here for forever. You will have to drag us out of the Mississippi River mud before we ever leave this piece of ground. Has done a lot of good for us. And the genuine nature of the city, when you're welcomed here, will get right down to your bone marrow. And what that does is it produces a sense of community that I think just cannot be replicated anywhere.
Yeah. So community, talent, and creativity all define a music city. Well, Michael, this has been great. I enjoyed talking with you, and you certainly have taken on a big responsibility, and you have a
Yes.
great background to kind of build coalitions, both locally and then with the state. So I look forward to seeing you in Nashville if you're
Yes,
going to
sir.
join us, and I wish you all the luck in what you're doing.
Likewise, and thank you for always supporting us, and being a patron and not just being a patron in time, but actively being a helper.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, being here since all the way back to 2000 and working with Frenchman Street and everything is we need people to help. It takes a village, and it means a lot that we feel that level of support from everyone else and get to share these type of personal memories.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Absolutely.